Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be going through my May TBR. I read adult fantasy romance or romantasy. I know some people think there's a difference. I just view them kind of the same. I like plot in all of my books, to be fair, but I understand the distinction some people make. It's just I'm not going to go that far in my videos. So let's go ahead and get started. We're already almost at mid-May, so I have read some of these books already. First up is The Road of Bones by Demi Winters. So I heard a lot of people talking about this book saying it was a really good Viking romantasy, that there was lots of plot twists. What else? I don't know. I was just sold by all the things that people were saying. Oh, I heard that there is some spice in it. Just really exciting stuff. And my big thing is I love a good plot twist. Like, that's one of my favorite tropes. I love to be shocked. I love to be surprised. Even if it comes, you know what, I'm not going to say too much. Even if it comes at a certain cost, I will say. But this book just was not it for me. I gave it 3 stars. I'm not going to continue with the series. I was thinking about putting the second book in my TBR before I finished the book, and that's exactly why I didn't do that and why I haven't done that with other books in this lineup, because I never know if I'm actually going to like the first book enough to continue on. And I feel like it does take a lot for me to not keep going, because if I was able to finish the book, like, I didn't even DNF it. I like spent my time reading that book. I must have liked the characters a little bit. You know, I must have been engaged in the story. And I was engaged in the story. I liked the characters. Like, most of them were fine. But I wasn't in love with the characters. So I kind of found myself just enjoying the book at a base level. And I was hoping that the plot twist and the ending would really sell me. Like, what is there that we don't know left? There was a lot. Like, not everything was revealed. There leaves a lot to the imagination once this book ends. But I did not care. Like, it was really one of those things where it was like, we do not care. Like, me, I do not care. I didn't get that feeling. So I definitely had to give it 3 stars. There were a couple things about the book that I liked. Like, I liked the way it highlighted a specific relationship. I can't get into it, but I felt like it was realistic. It was heartbreaking. I thought that, I will just say, like, trigger warning for addiction in this book. It was a little bit triggering even for me. It was like making me think about things. So I wasn't fully prepared for that, but I never read trigger warnings, to be fair. So that's probably my fault. I don't know if the author displayed those, but either way, even though it was tough for me to read, I really liked the discussion about addiction. Like, that was a big thing throughout the book. And I'm seeing that pop up more in fantasy, and I like to see it because it is really interesting to see something that affects so many people, has always affected people, but it seems like maybe more of a modern thing that people want to talk about, like pills or alcohol or ganja. And it's like, okay, it's interesting to see it in a, what is it? It's like the opposite of urban fantasy. I don't know, in the traditional fantasy context. So anyway, I liked those parts of the book. I thought that the spice was enjoyable. But other than that, I really did feel like the plot was just not unique enough for me. This book was entirely traveling. And I will say, like, I mentioned this before, and it sounds stupid to criticize this because traveling is fine. Like, traveling is fun. It's supposed to be a journey. It's supposed to be mysterious. But there was just not a lot of action in this book. Like, I don't know. I felt like the creatures, or like the action, was just kind of thrown in there randomly, and it would just fizzle away so quickly. And it just felt like low stakes in that way. And the world was just not described enough for me to care. And like I said, the world was just not unique enough. It just felt like, I don't know, it just didn't give me enough, to be quite honest with you. I do feel alone in that. A lot of people like this book, so read at your own risk. I'm just sharing my honest opinion. Next up is To Bleed a Crystal Bloom by Sarah A. Parker. So I read When the Moon Hatched, and actually, I think I finished it May 1st or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, but technically I read most of it in April. When I tell y'all I love this book, like, I love this book with every fiber of my being. When the Moon Hatched, When the Moon Hatched, okay? So I read To Bleed a Crystal Bloom because this came out before, and I was thinking, okay, am I missing out on the best thing on the planet? And I will say, no, I was not missing out. And I was wondering why it had a 3.78 rating. Like, I see there's like two groups of people, or maybe more than that. There's like the groups of people who kind of hate this book. There's the groups of people who think that it's very, very average. Like, they pretty much disliked it, but they didn't hate it either. And then there's the people who have like the cult following. So I will say, House of Fables on TikTok is one of my favorite people on there. She really likes indie fantasy romance or romantasy. And I'm realizing that's what I want to see more recommendations of. So that's why I keep making these videos, even though I feel like I'm screaming into the void. I really want to share with you guys because I don't want y'all to like waste your time. I mean, either way, tons of people are, publishing reviews of indie fantasy books. Like, I'm not the only one, but I just feel like if you like videos like me, there's not enough YouTubers covering indie fantasy romance books. Like, I don't know. I feel like I see some fantasy romance videos, but they're talking about the popular books or they're like talking about how bad the genre is. And I'm just like, okay, anyway, girl, like there's so many good books, I'm sure, and I am just on the quest to find the best indies. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. I mean, this book is just problematic, and I don't know what's coming next, but I hope it starts to make sense because House of Fables, going back to that, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm all over the place. House of Fables on TikTok said that this is her favorite series. She won't accept any criticism about it. And I've watched a lot of her reviews, and she said the second book reveals a lot about our main character and like things aren't as they seem, and everything that happened in book one, like it kind of shifts your entire perspective. And that's all I can say without spoiling. I don't even know what happens in book two, but all I know is I'm not sold after book one. It's like kind of the same thing as The Road of Bones, except there's like issues I have with this book and the premise that bother me. It's like, okay, so this is in the synopsis, I'm pretty sure, but Orlaith is our main character, and she gets saved at like 2 years old by this man, Rorden, who's old, I think, or immortal. I don't know. He's old. And he takes her to his castle and raises her kind of in isolation, but like she gets to talk to people and stuff, but she's very sheltered. And anyway, I think her family was like K-worded. I don't know for sure, but it's like one of those, like, that's okay. Here's the thing about this book. It had a lot of elements that reminded me of ACOTAR, which, okay, y'all are thinking I love ACOTAR, but it's a little bit different. It has its unique elements. So I don't want to say it's a copycat, but a lot of things did really remind me of ACOTAR. And I can't explain it right now, but there was like 10 or so times during the book that I was like, oh, it's reminding me of that. So I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. Honestly, I don't know which one was published first. I have to think it was ACOTAR, but it felt like inspired by ACOTAR, but with a lot of unique elements. Also kind of reminds me of Serpent in the Wings of Night because of what I said, how she was saved by this man, except. This isn't really a spoiler because it happened so soon in Serpent in the Wings of Night by Charissa Broadbent, so I'm just going to say it. But the man that saves her as a child in that book ends up being a father figure. In this book, I don't know what's going on, to be honest. Like, I don't know what's going on, but all I know is it's not familial. Like, maybe it is familial, but it's like, obviously there's some implied tension. And that's why I'm like, okay, maybe in the second book, I'm wrong about this weird vibe I have. But, and the thing is, I don't know if I can say this or if it's a spoiler or not. Yeah, I don't think I can say it. But there's some justification as to why it's not weird between Orlaith and Rorden, but it still does not matter to me. It does not matter to me, the justification. Okay, I hope this isn't like spoiler territory. It really, I have a thing about age gaps. Not that type of thing, like anti thing. I'm sorry. If you're in an age gap relationship, this is probably the book for you. And listen, nothing has happened yet to my knowledge. It's just, I feel like I can see where it's going, and it's not sitting right with me. And there's a lot of mystery in this book, kind of similar to When the Moon Hatched. There's mystery, like not everything is explained. You're kind of confused. It has this like dark vibe. Like, important topics are touched on, but it's not done as well. Like, you can totally tell that this book was written way before When the Moon Hatched. Like, When the Moon Hatched, you can tell, okay, Sarah A. Parker has had some experience. Like, it just feels more unique, first of all. Like I said, it doesn't give me any ACOTAR vibes. It doesn't remind me of any other book, any other series. And the characters are more mature. The premise is not so simple. Like, it's actually so complex and heartbreaking and interesting, and it did everything for me. 5 stars, 10 out of 10, flawless. This book, To Bleed a Crystal Bloom, it just feels so reduced. Like, and it makes sense, okay? So it's not like we went backwards. It's like, okay, it makes sense in retrospect, but it's just, it was a little disappointing, going from that book that was so amazing, and I don't know how long I have to wait for the next book. I just can't even cope. And I was hoping this would kind of, cure that feeling, that hangover. And it did not. It did not. It actually made me feel worse. Okay, I'm literally screaming into this mic right now. So this is another example to where I could have put book 2 and 3 in my TBR, and I didn't on purpose. And this was another situation where I don't know if I can keep going. But it annoys me because House of Fables, or not annoys me, that's not the right word. It pains me because House of Fables talks about this series all the time, and like, I want to get the hype. Can I just be honest with y'all? I started reading book 2 reviews, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be for me. It just doesn't. Like, it just seems like it's not going to go anywhere. Like, I don't know though. I could be wrong. Like, because I'm not reading the spoiler reviews. I'm just reading the reviews, but I'm not here to, I don't want to like force myself, if I'm feeling the vibe, let's just be done. I can always circle back. Okay, let's move on, y'all. Let's move on. Next up is The Crown of Oaths and Curses by Bree. So she wrote the Broken Bond series, which I think is like an 8-part reverse harem, if I'm not mistaken. Bondage, perhaps? No, I made that up. But definitely reverse harem, I think, series. And nothing wrong with that. It's just, I don't think that that's my journey. I don't know. Because, listen, I don't know. I just feel like once I go there, is there any going back? Maybe. But I don't know if it's my thing. Whatever. So this series is not supposed to be like that, I don't think. And it's totally possible for her to be versatile. Like, I'm not saying that, just because she wrote that series, she's limited to that. But yeah, I found that interesting. I found that interesting because I just did. Like, sometimes I do feel like authors stick to a niche. They don't have to, but sometimes I do see that. So I was wondering if this series was going to have something like that, but it seems to be just a straightforward fantasy romance between one woman and one man, I think. I don't know. I started reading this book. I'm like 80 pages in. I will say it's so hard to give an opinion on a book when you first started, because there's so many books that the first 100 pages literally had me falling asleep, drudging along, rolling my eyes. You have to just get into it. Like, that's why I just don't even feel comfortable speaking about it. But yeah, I will admit, it's like boring me a little bit. I mean, I have to understand the context. I get it. And by the way, I just found out that there was like prequels. There was a novella that you have to read, which, by the way, when people say you have to read the novella, you have to read the prequel, I never know if y'all are serious or not. Like, and I know y'all are like, I said you have to read it, so I meant that. No. But like, sometimes people say that, and it's not true. Like, people still say, like, you have to read A Court of Frost and Starlight. You do not have to read it. I went straight into Silver Flames, and I did just fine. I mean, actually, I don't know, because I didn't get the freaking context. Still haven't read it, so I don't know. Maybe I missed something crazy, but, like, just be serious. Like, I want to know, am I missing something major? Like, is it not going to get explained? I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of explaining going on about the political situation, which, let me just say, I'll say a book is boring. I'll be falling asleep. I'll be struggling, but I don't actually have a problem with that. Like, I accept and I know that that's a me problem, because as long as it comes together, I love it. I love it. Like, I might be complaining the whole time, but when it all comes together, when that world building and that politicking and all of there's like so many characters, there's so many things to follow, when it all comes together in the end, I will be cheering. I will be cheering. So I'm here for it. Only thing is, when it becomes repetitive, that's when I get annoyed for real, because it's like, girl, don't waste my time. So I'm kind of in this place right now where I just want something to kick off. Like, I'm already past the 10%, kind of approaching 20%, and I'm like, I'm ready for war. Like, I'm ready for beef, So anyway, can I get to the point? So this book is allegedly a true enemies to lovers, but only the first book is out. So I guess no one really knows if they're going to end up being lovers, but it's like, this isn't a spoiler. It's just everybody knows that this is an enemies to lovers book, okay? Because it's marketed as a fantasy romance, and they are fated mates. Like, that's like the basic synopsis premise. So that's not even a spoiler. Like, these two people, it's a witch and a fae, and the witches are discriminated against and being killed off. And this particular fae is not just any ordinary fae. He's high fae. So, they look down upon witches. They look down upon the lesser fae. So he's like really up there. Again, thinks witches are horrible, and they both find out that they are fated mates and that their union will like save the world. Again, this is like very, very early on in the book, probably on the back of the cover or back of the book. So you already know that they hate each other, but the man especially hates the woman, and the story goes from there. So I kind of feel like going into it was such a basic premise that I wasn't really, this isn't a book that I normally would have been drawn to, but I heard Raven-Haired Reader, talking about how much she loves this because it's a true enemies to lovers. Like, they hate each other down, and there's like no romance in the first book. Like, I don't know if y'all consider that spoiler, but I would want to know that off the bat. So I'm going into it with that expectation, which I'm fine with, because honestly, if there's tons of, enemy tension, like, I'm not expecting like flirty tension, I'm expecting like enemy tension. And then I'm just excited to see the journey of enemy to reluctant, not even ally, but like, okay, maybe you're not my enemy, but still fighting those feelings. Like, I'm excited to see that journey. And because so many books, they just rush the enemy part. They're never really enemies, So that is what drew me to this book, because like I said, the premise sounds very simple. But when I heard that the entire first book is like this, I thought this might be interesting. So again, I'm barely in the book. I have high hopes that it will come together. Next up is The Dawn of the Cursed Queen, which is the third book in the Gods and Monsters series by Nicole. I already made videos about the Book of Azrael and the Throne of Broken Gods. I love this book. Actually, y'all, looking back on it, my book boyfriends are Samkiel and Cassian. Like, it's no competition, and Samkiel might even be above Cassian at this point. Like, it is that serious. The dirty talk in this book is quite dirty, quite dominant, quite, like, you listen, like 18 plus, like 21 plus, like it's definitely giving that. So I loved this book. Like, I can't even get into it, you guys. Like, it was just great. The first book, 5 stars. Second book, 3.5. I don't know. Something about it was different. I'm not going to get into it, but I really hope that the third book, is better than the second book to me. But the second book was great. Like, I loved seeing my characters again, and I enjoyed it, and I was never bored. So I'm really excited to get back into this world. It's actually my most anticipated book, I think. And Amber did confirm that there will be 7 books in this series. They don't do it like this anymore. They don't. But please don't make them all filler. I don't think she will, but don't try it. And it will center around Dianna and Samkiel. She confirmed that. So it's not just going to be spin-offs. It's like, wow. So, you know, part of me is like, I need to cling on to the original characters. Like, don't give me new people. Like, I can be like that sometimes. But part of me is also like, okay, let's not do, you know, repeats or like the same shebang, because then I'll get bored of the original people. It's like, okay, like if we're going to bring in new people, they got to shake it up. So, or like if you're going to keep the original two and then you just like never have them together, like you're just playing games, like that's really frustrating too. So I don't know. Next up is The Witch Collector by Charissa Weeks. So I started this book. It's kind of reminding me of the feeling I got with Serpent in the Wings of Night, where I started that book literally like 10 times and I could not finish it. This book, I've only started it a few times, but it's not clicking for me. Like sometimes I would force myself. I'd be like, girl, I know you're not digging it right now, but just keep going. It'll get better. It'll get better. And I don't know what it is. It's just not, it's not working. So I hope to read it in May, but there are no promises. Next up is Sun Serpent by Geneva Monroe. I don't hear about this book a lot at all. I mean, it doesn't even have 2,000 ratings, but it is getting up there. I heard about this from House of Fables. I trust her recommendations. I know I was telling you I don't like To Bleed a Crystal Bloom, but she likes The Book of Azrael. She likes The Kiss of Iron. She likes a lot of books that I like. So she recommended this. I also saw someone else on TikTok mention this book. So I really want to read it. I'm intrigued. This is about a fire singer seeking vengeance and a prince who is not what he seems. Okay, yeah, I remember this, that it revolves around a circus troupe's tent, which I read The Night Circus. Y'all, looking back on it, that's the type of book to put you in a reading slump. That's the type of book that you're like, I'm 200 pages in and nothing has happened. I've just read a bunch of descriptions, a bunch of what? Like that book was actually insane. I DNF'd it, so I never finished it, but it was just beautiful writing, like immersive world. Like the descriptions were amazing, but it's like, this isn't an award for like, can you describe a world? Can you create a world? It's like, is there a plot? Again, I didn't finish the book, so okay. But I remember I was reading that book for weeks and it was just something else. Anyway, but I loved the idea of a circus and I've been wanting to read about it in a book again where it was actually interesting. So yes, in her circus troupe tent, our main character, Olivia, dances with fire. She disguises her gift of showmanship, but she longs for answers about why she has this power that no one else possesses. Prince Cal is looking for the girl who burns the brightest. Only she can stop the horror inflicted on his kingdom by a sadistic lord who controls the mind of his victims. Yeah, so the synopsis is super interesting. Lastly is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. I've heard amazing things about this book. I think Ravenhair Reader talked about it. That Elowin Atara, the Princess of Imrath. Oh yeah, she has a link to 5 dragons. And that whole concept, period, just kind of reminded me of Daenerys. And I love Daenerys. I mean, I haven't read the books. Don't at me. But I saw the show and it's just, anyone that reminds me of Daenerys, I'm gonna get chills. Like her and her 3 dragons, people underestimating her, just them being babies and then growing with her. It could make me emotional. So yes, and then she has a secret kingdom that she forges. And anyway, I just thought that the premise was really interesting. And like I said, I heard good things. So that is my May TBR. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope I get to all these books. And I will let you know my thoughts once the month is complete. So thank you again for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these down below or what you are reading this month. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.